Welcome to today's lesson. Today we are going to continue factorising expressions. To factorise, we first need to set up our grid method. We're going to put the terms in the question into the answer boxes in the grid method. We need to work out which terms will multiply to give us 5ab and which terms will multiply to give us plus 3a. Now, we can't factorise out a number from this expression because the highest common factor of 5 and 3 is just 1. And if we divide by 1, we'll end up with the same terms in the question. So today, we're going to try and factorise a variable out of these terms. Which variable appears in this term and this term? It's a. So we can write that on the left side of our grid method. All we need to do now is work out the terms that will go at the top of the grid method. To do that, we're going to do 5ab and divide by a, and that will give us 5b. And we need to do positive 3a divided by a, and that will give us just positive 3. Once our grid method is complete, it's really important that we write down the final answer, and that's going to be the term on the left on the outside of the bracket and the terms at the top on the inside of the bracket. So the final answer is a brackets 5b plus 3 close brackets. On to the next question. Again, we start by drawing our grid method, and we're putting the terms in the question into the answer boxes. Once again, there isn't a number I can divide both of these terms by, so we're looking for a variable that we can divide them both by. Both of these terms have the variable of c, so we'll write that in on the left-hand side. 8cd divided by c, well, the c's will cancel out, so we'll be left with 8d. Positive c divided by c just gives us 1, but it's really important that because we've got a positive sign divided by another positive variable here, our answer is positive and we include that within our grid method. And then we simply write down the final answer, c on the outside of the bracket, and 8d plus 1 on the inside of the bracket. On to the next question, and once again we start off by drawing in the grid method. I can't divide 4 and 3 by a number, so again we're just looking for a variable. A is in both, so A is going to go in on the left hand side of the grid method. Now 4a squared divided by a will give us this term up here. The number in front of a here is actually the number 1, so 4 divided by 1 just gives us 4. And now a squared divided by a, this is where a lot of errors can happen. It's really important to remember that the power of a is actually just a power of 1 and we don't write it in. But to divide a squared by a to the power of 1, we subtract the powers away from each other. So a squared divided by a to the 1, again will just be a to the 1. So we'll write that as a, and we're not going to write in the power of 1 here. Plus 3a divided by a, the a's will cancel each other out, so we get plus 3. And we'll write our final answer, a's on the left of the grid method, and then 4a plus 3 on the inside of the bracket. Question 4 is very similar. We just have more terms in the initial question to deal with. So 5a cubed plus 3a squared minus 6a. There is not a number that divides 5, 3 and 6 all at once. So again, just looking for a variable. A is in all 3 terms. 5a cubed divided by a, the 5 is going to stay where it is, but a cubed divided by a is a squared. The positive 3 is also going to stay on the top row, that a squared divided by a is just a, and minus 6a divided by a. It's really important that because this is negative and this is positive, we've got one negative in the calculation when we divide them, so we're going to get one negative in the answer. 6 is just going to stay there, and a divided by a cancel each other out, so we're left here with minus 6. So the final answer, a on the outside of the bracket, 5a squared plus 3a minus 6 on the inside of the bracket. The next question is going to be slightly different, but we start off in exactly the same way of writing in the terms in the question into the answer boxes of the grid method. Here, there is a number that divides both 6 and 8, whilst leaving us with integer values, and that's the number 2. So we are going to write a 2 on the left side of the grid method. However, we can also factorise out a variable. Both of these terms have the variable b, so we can write b on the left-hand side as well. It's really important that we write the number first and then the variable rather than the other way round. Now we just do the division. We'll divide the numbers first, so 6 divided by 2 is 3, and AB divided by B will have the b's cancel each other out and leave us with just A. We'll then move on to the second term. Positive 8 divided by 2 is positive 4, and B divided by B is just 1, but that would give us 4 times 1, so we're just going to leave it as plus 4. We can check that's correct because positive 4 times 2b would multiply the numbers together to get positive 8, and then we'd just write the b afterwards. A reminder, make sure to write the final answer, so 2b on the outside of the bracket and 3a plus 4 on the inside of the bracket. Question 6, and we draw our grid method, 5cd minus 15d. 5 will divide both 5 and 15, so that will go on the left-hand side. Both of them have a variable of d, so that's also going to go on the left. We're now going to divide 5cd by 5d. 5 divided by 5 is 1, but when I do d divided by d, which is also 1, they're going to cancel and just give us c. So rather than writing 1c, we're just going to write c here. Again, we can check, does 5d times c equal 5cd? If it does, then we're correct and we can carry on. Minus 15 divided by 5, well, there's one negative in that calculation, so there'll be one negative in the question. 15 divided by 5 is 3. D divided by d, they're going to cancel each other out, so we're just left with minus 3 on top. So therefore the answer, 5d, and then in brackets, c minus 3. Question 7 is very similar, but is now also including powers. 7a squared and plus 14a goes inside the grid method. What number divides both 14 and 7? It's 7. And what variable will divide a squared and a? It's just a. 7a squared divided by 7a. Well, 7 divided by 7 is 1, but we're not going to write that down because we'll have a variable left over when we do a squared divided by a, which is just a. Positive 14a divided by 7a. Well, positive 14 divided by 7 is positive 2. And a divided by a cancel each other out, so we've got a plus 2 on top. So our final answer, 7a, and then in brackets, a plus 2. For the final question, it's really important that we find the correct number that will divide all three terms. So, 4 will divide 4 and positive 12, but 4 will not divide minus 10 into an integer. So we need to pick a different value. the highest common factor of 4, 12 and 10 is 2. So 2 will be on the left-hand side of the grid method. We now need to see which variables appear in every single term. A is in all three terms, so we can write A in on the left. B isn't in all three terms. C is not in all three terms. D isn't in all three terms, and neither is E, so only A can go on the left-hand side. Now we do the division. 4 divided by 2 is 2. A divided by A will cancel out, leaving us with B, C. Positive 12 divided by 2 is positive 6, and again we make sure we remember to put in the sign. A divided by A cancels, leaving us with ED. And minus 10 divided by 2 is minus 5. A divided by A cancels, so we're left with BD. So here, the final answer is going to be 2A on the outside of the bracket, followed by 2BC plus 6ED minus 5BD on the inside of the bracket. And that concludes today's lesson on factorising.